So that way we are streaming out. We are live. Very good. So we'll be going into case study, integration today, boundaries, as well as your inner healer. It'll be a short class today. So just as we kind of buzz through and get everything kind of tightened up from our Intro to Holistic Medicine 2 class. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Dr. Erica Steele. I'm a board certified naturopathic doctor. I hold 7 degrees in my field. They're all in the natural healthcare space. I always like to say that I went to school so you don't have to, and really educating you on what you need to do in order to heal yourself and your family naturally. So, like I was saying, Wednesday's class was all about really connecting with those case studies, helping to assess if those patients are ready for detoxification, and by ready meaning are they emotionally ready? Are they making sure that they're eliminating properly? Are they breaking their foods down? Do they have enough energy? Because all of those would be contraindications, meaning things that we wouldn't be able to move past when we are looking to detoxify. So we first have to build the body up, then we're going to detox the body, and then ultimately we rebuild the body after that. So we are going to be integrating kind of all this subjective and objective data into itself, strengthen our ethical and energetic boundaries today with this practice, and understand that you are the first and foremost person in the healthcare relationship. So I know a lot of us get into holistic medicine. It's a healing profession. So we want to help people heal and get well, etc. We just have to make sure that we don't do it from our own demise, right? We don't do it from a wounded place, but rather we're doing it from a very healed place. Thank you, Kayla, for sharing the live. I appreciate you for that and liking. And so we'll work on that. And then naturally, we're preparing for our project for next week. So your tools are only as sharp as the hands holding them. So healing others begins with the healer, it begins with you looking at self and healing self. All right. So for today's class, like I said, it'll be a short class today, nothing too crazy. We'll talk a little bit about the 6 case studies that we did for this week. So when we were talking about those case studies we did in class on Wednesday, so there was a couple of cases of emotional unreadiness. The person just wasn't ready. They were overwhelmed. They were anxious, that sort of thing. Then there was people that were really depleted because they were doing cleanse after cleanse after cleanse. And so making sure you set those boundaries and reframe that expectation so that they understand, that this is for their health, not necessarily out of fear. We also looked at people that were just really energetically depleted, whether it was nutritionally, mentally, emotionally, or all of the above. And so as we frame those cases out, we look at what the priority is in therapeutic order, what we need to do in order to safely build those cases up before we detoxify. So we're not going to go over each individual case study. You can look at the Wednesday's class. For your final project, just because it's a self-guided class, there will be 3 recordings that will be within the final assessment, and you'll just choose one as your case, listen to it, and that will be your final project case study. So let me know if you have any questions about that. So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about this class. You are your first patient. So hopefully you're working with yourself, you're learning yourself, and you're applying what we learn to what's going on with yourself and your body and your mind and your mental, emotional state. And so our protocol sequence is we're going to observe. As we observe, we have presenting symptoms. Then we're going to use subjective data, right? So we use a questionnaire. In this case, we're using our detox questionnaire combined with our nutritional assessment questionnaire. Then we have a hypothesis, which is nothing more than an educated guess. Then we use our objective analysis, a tool outside of me, outside of you. So it can be anywhere from salivary pH to urinary pH to bowel transit time, heart rate. We have several different objective metrics that we've learned so far, and we can apply. This class specifically is really related to bowel transit time, stomach acid as an optional, and your urinary pH levels. So Those are more of your eliminatory metrics for that. Then we're going to look at your drainage pathways, your primary and your eliminatory. So that helps us to determine what our order of operations is when we're working with our client. So that lets us know, okay, we need to start with the liver, start with the large intestines, the kidneys, and so on and so forth. Then we're going to collect and figure out all the tools that we're going to utilize with our patient and what we're trying to achieve. And then we're going to build out that timeline for them so easily. So we want to also recognize that this isn't just for the clinical aspect. This can be personally done too. Anytime I have a symptom or something that's off balance, I always go into the inquiry of it and more observe and use this process to discover what's going on even with myself. So don't speed past the fact that, again, you are your first patient. All right, so now let's talk about inner healing and boundaries. I don't think that this topic can be talked about enough in this field. And so self-healing and healing others or facilitating other people's healing requires a lot of self-care. So healing is absolutely, self-healing anyway, is a prerequisite for any ethical and effective practice. And why do we say that? Because you can't possibly teach and help another individual if you don't know it yourself. So if you haven't studied or you haven't, supported your body, if you haven't, done all the protocols, etc., then, how effective are you going to be? Because you're not going to have the nuance to be able to describe what's going on with the patient. So make sure that you are practicing a holistic lifestyle if you are in the holistic health coaching world. Right? So the risk of practicing really can come from unhealed wounds. So we have to always check ourselves, because if we are trying to rescue, fix, if we don't have healthy therapeutic boundaries, then what happens? That can lead to burnout, projection, and then loss of objectivity. So we really want to be objective when we're working with people. Remember, these are not us. These people are, their own individual human beings. We can't take what they say or do personally, even though it can be really challenging, especially when you're trying to help people. So this is where upfront assessment tools come in handy, because I really want to assess, is this person ready to get well, right? And that's why we go into, thank you so much for the roses. So this is where we go into things like making sure they're in the stages of change. So they're in an action phase or they're in a contemplative stage. Thank you so much, because that is going to determine, again, their readiness for the care. Otherwise, what happens is you're dragging them along, right? Which is no fun for me or you. You're not only are you dragging them along and it's stressful, but you're not really getting, they're not really helping, because a lot of times they're going to be resistant in those situations. So just keep that in mind. Yes, you can go ahead and take some screenshots. Oceans, that's totally fine. And I'll make sure I put the slides up on, thank you for the heart, me, Daphne. I'll make sure I put the slides up in the course portal. So I need to get my life together when it comes to all that. So, all right, cool. Let's see. So your boundaries are there to protect yourself and protect the clinical space. So, first and foremost, it's to make sure that your needs are met, making sure your water, your food, your movement, all of those particular things. And then in kind, making sure that you have a healthy therapeutic space. So, meaning, the boundaries and the time, expectations, billing practices, all of those things are fleshed out and organized and communicated. Now, if people test your boundaries coming into the practice, more than likely they're going to be like that the entire time. So really look for red flags. We're not desperate for people to work with. We want to make sure that the people we're working with are actually going to get the benefit out of our treatment, and they're actually going to transform, and we're not just going to be dragging them around. One of your clients can literally have the emotional weight of like 10 if you are not clearly defined in your boundaries. So make sure of that. Boundaries protect your energy, your objectivity, and your client outcomes. So making sure that, let's say, even if you get sick, maybe you need to cancel your patients for the day. And I know that's not ideal, but if you're not going to show up as your best self for them, probably not a good thing to see them. Now, naturally, I keep myself fairly well. There's been times when I've definitely pushed it, but by and large, I take care of myself first and foremost to make sure that I'm available to other people. So the physician heal thyself is a moniker that we use. It's in naturopathy. It's one of the 5 ethical codes that we use on top of like doctor is teacher, those sorts of things. So we want to make sure that you first begin to heal yourself before you begin to go and help other people heal. Because transference is real, where you're transferring perhaps your issues onto them and then vice versa, as well as projection. So projection shows up because you are setting the boundary, the ego of there's no likey, and because of that, it creates that kind of projected state where now you become the problem, et cetera, even though, again, you were minding your own business and they were looking for your help and feedback. So again, knowing yourself in this field is really important, knowing your boundaries, knowing what you will accept, won't accept, and building out those things prior to going into practice. So those people that want to come on with me and learn holistic health coaching, these are all structures that we work on: building your core values, building your clinic core values, and establishing those things up front so that when you start taking your clients, you've already has all of that already flushed out, ready to go. And so it makes it for just a little bit of a cleaner experience in the beginning. So emotional and spiritual hygiene is your professional responsibility, meaning making sure that you are emotionally healthy, to engage with a patient. Not to say that you have to be perfect and you have to pull it all together all the time, but remember that there's a power dynamic there. These people are coming in to be able to seek care and seek treatment. They're not coming in to take care of you. And so making sure that that dynamic is clear, being professional, being open, but still being a little reserved and keeping those boundaries in place, because your role is to hold that space for them, not the other way around. I can't tell you how many providers I've gone to where I end up holding space for them. And I'm like, wait a second, what am I paying you for? So we don't want to be that. We want to make sure that we are being healthy with this, that we are establishing our own mental and emotional and spiritual health practices ahead of time. And we're practicing those diligently. That way, when we're working with people, it's a little bit easier to distinguish what's mine from what's yours. Spiritual hygiene is really important too. I don't think people take this into consideration, but there are lots of emotional vampires around. There, people just dump emotionally onto others, and so I definitely recommend a lot of spiritual cleansing as well. So Epsom salt baths, using peppermint essential oil to clear your aura, sage, Palo Santo, those sorts of things, just to clear your energetic field of you working with people, just to cut down on some of the transference that may be happening. All right, let me check and just make sure. Make sure. All right, that I'm not missing anybody. Okay, good. We're good. All right, so boundaries in healthcare. So there are many different boundaries that we look at when we're looking in healthcare. So let's go ahead and break these types of boundaries down. So the first set of boundaries is your physical boundaries. So that's respecting personal space and touch without consent. There's really no particular reason for you to be touching the person. You can be reasonably away from each other and be able to see it. If they have rashes or things like that, they can take pictures of that. Again, physical touch is not not really required, and vice versa. Now, some people are huggers and things like that. You'll have to use your professional discretion. I try to keep those boundaries pretty clear. I may be open with patients that I've known for a long time or treated for years, etc. So I just kind of take it there. But your goal in creating a physical boundary is creating a safe, clean, and professional environment for the session. So you want to make sure that it's somewhere where, it's not chaotic. There's not a lot of junk. There's not a lot of things going on. And I also like in the beginning, definitely having your personal life and your professional life separated. I had a separate location and separate practice for many, many years before I started to go online and do virtual. Virtual is very different too, but still in the same that you can create that professional space, even with, the virtual component of it. So make sure that you know when a physical intervention is outside of your scope of practice. So making sure when you're assessing things that if there's a physical ailment, there's a structural component going on, that you make sure that you make those necessary recommendations. Even if you're unsure, right? You don't even have to be totally sure of it. Even if you're like, I don't know, especially in the beginning, it's always a good practice to refer out just to have them get it checked out and to see an opinion. It's better to be safer than sorry later on. Then you have emotional boundaries. So that's staying compassionate, open, without absorbing other people's stuff. Remember, your patient's responsibilities are not your responsibilities. So making sure you have a healthy boundary. And you don't want to get into this rescuer role or this savior role, or I got to fix this person role, because they're not broken. Their job really is to be a student to you as a teacher. And really, it's about learning how to live a holistic lifestyle. So there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no, oh, thank you for the subscription. There's no shame, there's no blame, there's no ridicule, there's none of that. It's just making sure that they understand what role you serve in their life. So the other thing too is recognizing when there's an emotional involvement that clouds your clinical judgment. So really being mindful of, am I caring too much about this patient? Is my judgment clouded with this particular patient? Are they manipulating me? Like, it took me a long time to realize when patients would constantly complain about their finances. They would come in and they'd be like, oh my God, this and that and this and that and all this and all of that. And what it did for me, unfortunately, is it stifled my fee schedule for many, many years, because I was constantly feeling bad for other people in their financial situation, realizing that some people weaponize their financial situation as a means to gain free care, free stuff, etc. So again, these emotional boundaries and seeing, these are people that we're working on and treating. That's why, again, I'm really a proponent of building out all of your systems for your business before you start seeing your first patient. That way you've already established that and you don't need to get into too much of the back and forth. So energetic boundaries. So we want to protect your own vital force life energy, especially too, because you're coming in contact with so many different people from so many different perspectives, so many different backgrounds, etc. So making sure that you're not taking on everyone's, stuff, so to speak. And you're doing those emotional practices of clearing, such as saging and smudging and Epsom salt baths, etc. And so we want to maintain this separation between your personal energetic state and your client's energetic state. So it's very easy for that transference to happen, but we want to keep it separate. So whatever burdens emotionally and mentally and psychosocially, spiritually that they're carrying, that is not your responsibility. And there is a definite balance of power where people do, want to be on the little bit of a lazier side, or they're victims, they're in that victim mindset, they're powerless, or their inner child is just acting out like crazy and they want you to fix it. So you really have to be clear that your role is not to run in and fix them. You're not Operation Save-A-Ho. Your role is to hold space for them and guide them through a process of healing, but it's their responsibility to choose that healing path for themselves. Make sense? So then with that being said, professional boundaries, where we stay within our scope of practice. I was just thinking, before I got on, how frustrating it is right now with a lot of conventional doctors where they're jumping on the holistic bandwagon because it's a money generator, not having any education or training in this and thinking that they can just wing it, right? And how frustrating it is, because let's say if I wanted to be a primary care, I don't, but let's say I did, it's not like I could just hang my shingle as a primary care. I have to actually go to school, get educated, take the boards, etc. However, it seems like the conventional healthcare community just goes, "Oh, that's fine for me, but I don't have to do that. I don't have to go to any educational system. It's just herbs. I can just start recommending things." And of course, as they begin to do that, they start to run into issues, challenges, because it's a very different practice than allopathy. So then a lot of times their patients leave them because, of course, they're not really being effective and they're not getting the results that they need, and they're missing so much of the patient care. So staying within your scope of practice is key, and referring out, not just referring, outward, but also receiving referrals as well. We'll talk about that, a little bit later, but, going to primary care physicians, asking for referrals, etc. I've done that and it's worked really well. So avoid dual relationships, such as treating close friends. Yes, it is extremely treating close friends or family without clear agreements in place. I don't typically recommend to treat any family, quite honestly, but if y'all want to be brave out there, feel free, because there's so much in that. And again, that transference is real, so I really wouldn't recommend that. So you want to have your clear policies regardless on scheduling, cancellations, payments, and communication outside of sessions, just so you're clearly defined, so that there's no misconceptions, there's no attitudes, frustrations, etc. The last type of boundary we're going to go over is time boundaries. So making sure that you're structuring your sessions and staying within an adequate time frame. Usually for an initial consultation, it's an hour, and then for a follow-up, it's about 30 minutes. Some patients will use less time, some patients will want more time, but it's up to you to have those boundaries in place, and also have those talking points if you need to, let's say, get out of an appointment earlier. I always kind of keep a look on the time and make sure, especially looking at 15-minute increment windows. So about 15 minutes prior to the appointment time, if this is a person who is long-winded, or this is a person who has a lot to say or communicate, I will give them like a 15-minute warning and just let them know, hey, by the way, we've got only 15 minutes left, so let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. You let them know that up front, so they have that idea you're managing their expectations. So keep that in mind. Being punctual on your end is important as well. I know that could be challenging. I know it's been challenging for me for years for different things, because I'm working with patients, and some patient needs a little bit more, some patient needs a little bit less, etc. Time zone differences, all kinds of stuff. So life happens, but in kind, we do want to try to be as professional as we possibly can by, of course, creating those boundaries for ourselves with our time. The last thing is allowing adequate recovery between clients to avoid burnout. So you can do a 15-minute gap in between. A lot of times people will do that, or you can just do, right back to back, but make sure that you are creating that space and that transition between patients, meaning clearing the last patient before you go into the next. So you don't want to just have one rolling patient. You want to have like 5 minutes of just breather in between, whether you go to the bathroom, get some water, get some tea, etc. You want to make sure that you have enough space, energy, etc., to be able to keep that boundary in place. So just to recap, because I didn't have the slide up, your physical boundaries, again, are your physical space, your touch points. Your emotional boundaries are keeping you and your client's emotions separate from themselves, being more proactive with them instead of reactive. Energetic boundaries, not just allowing them to emotionally dump on you, but putting some protections in place and cleansing and clearing practices. Naturally professional boundaries, making sure that you are who you say you are and going through adequate get training before you are hanging your shingle out as a professional. And then when you become a professional, making sure that you have all of the various different boundaries in place, from time to money to scheduling, etc., just so that you make sure that you're managing those expectations for the patient. All right. So there are costs to having poor boundaries naturally. Hey, Dr. Jess. So compassion fatigue and burnout, having those structural boundaries is key, because it's not always you. It's already done. That's why I love, and I recommend you pre-do all of your boundaries and your policies and procedures before you take patients, because blurred roles can lead to either dependency or over reliance. So I never want a patient's power. So if I find in the beginning, especially if they're giving me their power, I take steps way back to make sure that there's enough space so that they are kind of falling forward to themselves, not necessarily looking to me to run in and save and fix, because that's not my role. We also want to make sure that you don't lose objectivity in a clinical decision making. So I may have a feeling about a certain treatment or a certain person or a certain people group or whatever. All of that is aside when I am in treatment of a patient. So meaning their political ideologies and all that kind of stuff, none of that matters when I'm serving them, right? Now, I may choose to only work with a certain group or a certain patient population that I feel most comfortable with, i.e., let's say if I wanted to open a Christian health facility, right? I'm not Christian, but let's say if I wanted to open a Christian only, and because we have that same thought process and that common thread, there's nothing wrong with doing that, making sure that you define those boundaries up front. And vice versa. Patients will come in and ask those questions as well, and being able to be open and transparent, not getting offended, because they're shopping for providers. So, you're putting yourself out there. You can have kind of a canned answer, or you can have one that's a little bit more in depth. But remember, don't make it about you. It's still about them. If there is emotional or energetic exhaustion, it can make it really hard to show up fully for future. And these are just some of the costs, again, of having poor boundaries, because you're constantly being depleted and never being regenerated. So ethical breaches also can harm your reputation and client trust. And this is not just ethical breaches of your own making. This can be ethical breaches and clinical harm that can be caused by your staff, etc. So hiring practices are important, not letting things just kind of go, making sure you're nipping things in the bud sooner rather than later, having direct conversations, because you're better off letting go of the employee rather than keeping them around, and it creating, deeper and deeper challenges. So just consider that as you are working to kind of build your team, build your team, as well as work on the people. Hey, Fit Mom, how are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I just accepted your request, but I can drop if you want to stay in the comments.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. It's so good to see you. I'll go ahead and tuck you back down. All right, cool. So creating these boundaries is helpful for you and helpful for them, just to make sure, again, that there's minimal transference, minimal, just mess between the two. So be mindful of that. So we'll reiterate again what healthy boundaries looks like as a provider. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can see these. Okay. All right. So self-check-ins before sessions, right? So having healthy boundaries include checking in with self. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Am I grounded? Am I present? Am I resourced enough? Sometimes you'll need to pray before appointments. Sometimes you'll need to meditate. Sometimes you'll just need to collect yourself. Sometimes you'll need to look and organize data. So just make sure that you check in with self and make sure that yourself is taken care of before you go and help other people. Another thing that can really help is daily reset rituals. So again, your breath work, your journaling, your meditation, your morning practice, your evening practice, all of those things are part of having a holistic lifestyle, but also daily reset goals and rituals for yourself so that you are, staying in alignment and staying in tune, especially as people are coming to you and challenging you on all levels, right? Scripted phrases can also really help too. So you don't have to remember certain things off the jump. You can actually script these things and write them out, especially if you see them consistently. So for instance, when I kept seeing the people that were weaponizing their financial experience to try to coerce me into, I guess, feeling sorry for them or whatever, I would throw that into ChatGPT and kind of assess it and then come up with some scripting responses and some phrases that would really validate their concerns by also upholding those boundaries as well. So think about that. Also having accountability partnerships. So those are other professionals that you can go to and you can ask for assistance. So whether that be a mental health professional, a life coach, a holistic health coach, a doctor, any sort of professional, having those different people that you can reach out to, depending on, I even had, an elder in the church, because I didn't grow up in the church like that and don't really know all the things. So I have an elder from the church that I can call, right? Who, like, if I'm stuck and I've got a patient that, the Bible is their thing, I have somebody that I can call that can translate, Google Translate for me, what's being said and that sort of thing. So that not only am I learning, but I'm also respecting and honoring that individual while also bringing in their personal preferences into. And I've learned a lot about all kinds of different, religions, backgrounds, cultures, etc. as a response to that. So it is really fun. Now, again, if you want to just kind of stick with your own group, feel free. Just make sure that you do offer some pathway for other people. Otherwise, they'll call it discrimination. All right, so now let's look at your inner healer. So we talk a lot about out here, meaning working on the people out here, but let's work on these inner healers within ourselves, right? So making sure that we focus on ourselves. Thank you. Focus on ourselves and what we need in order to heal ourselves. And so what does that look like? That looks like connecting with ourselves. That looks like really being present to our innate emotional intelligence. It looks at looking at, the health of someone as a whole unit, not fixing a broken system. It looks at taking personal accountability and self-responsibility, as well as recognizing what's showing up, what part of that is for you and what part of that is for the patient. So let's dig in a little bit. As we begin, we're talking about innate intelligence. So there is definitely a learning curve to this information, and there is a hard science, but there's an intuition that you and your ancestors naturally have access to. So this supersedes some of the logical reasoning, which can be a little frustrating because it's like, okay, I've got all this stuff set, but then I'm getting a message from spirit that says I need to say it like this or do it like this, etc. What do I do? And so the answer to that is to trust, right? Trust whatever is coming up within yourself, right? Is valid, makes sense, etc. Now, that doesn't mean you have to act on it. Doesn't mean that particular whatever is shown to you, means that you need to go and do something about it right now. But it simply means that this is something to be aware of and present to. I can tell you it's interesting when I'm working with patients because I feel, I'm getting my stuff and keeping my stuff organized, and then I'm picking up what their stuff is and trying to, keep all the balls in the air and make sure that everyone is safe and cared for and healthy in the process. So it's definitely a balancing act, but trusting self and knowing self is critical. So the body has an inherent drive towards metabolism when given the right conditions. Remember, the body is an amazing self-healing organism which can and heal itself if given the right environment. So our job is to create the environment that is conducive for healing. And healing, remember, is not just physical. It's mental, it's emotional, it's environmental. And also don't forget, not every patient walks into your practice day one and vomiting all of their business to you. A lot of times it takes year after year, months after months for them to really find that truth within themselves and be able to communicate it out loud. So we also get into this thought of needing to fix what's broken, and that's not what this is about. Healing is restoring back to wholeness, yes, but it's not looking at the body as broken, but rather out of balance. So we're getting the body back into balance, and that's how we create our whole self. So because we recognize that there has to be the polarity of the negative in order for the positive to occur. So what do I mean by that? Meaning we have to know war in order to know love, right? We have to know hate in order to know love, right? And even though these more negative feelings again are overwhelming and frustrating, it is our cross to bear to face them, right? The truth will first piss us off and then it will set us free. So our goal is to sit with our emotions, no matter how painful they are, and then slowly transform them, right? Because we don't want to keep suppressing and erasing symptoms. That's what allopathic medicine does. In natural and holistic medicine, we throw everything out on the table and we organize and we prioritize it, falling into therapeutic order. Symptoms are typically messengers of the body pointing to the deeper imbalance. So silencing from prematurely can also prevent you from true healing. So making sure you don't ignore your body, you don't ignore those little subtle signals that you're getting. You stop, you acknowledge, you journal, you accept them, and trust that you're going to be led to the pathway that you need in order to heal. I think sometimes people think, oh, if I look at this, then what's going to happen to me? And then they bring in their medical trauma, institutional traumas, and betrayal traumas into the mix, not realizing that truly, people, they're going to heal at their own time, at their own pace, at their own flow. And it does take a little bit of something because they have to let go of what is costing them and what's holding them back. So we want to have patience. We want to have love, self-assuredness, and we always want to see them as already whole, healthy, and healed. And we're just helping to guide them in that process, right? Speaking of which, it's self-responsibility. So I can be the best practitioner known to man, but if you as the patient or you as a provider doesn't choose to take personal accountability and responsibility for yourself and your life, that who is going to? Nobody. So we want to make sure that the patients are active participants. Remember I was saying some people will try to do the kind of a flaccid thing where they're trying to be a passive vessel, and those are red flag patients to me. No, I have to maintain my own health. I cannot throw my health out the window to be maintaining your health. We don't even live together, that sort of thing, like so many things. So really teaching people to heal. And again, that's where inner child work really just does incredible work, because a lot of times the reason they're acting out is because they're so emotionally wounded from the past and their childhood that they're just cleaving for something to help make it better. And you want to know that. You want to set those boundaries. So this is also where the practitioner continues to do their own work, whether they're physical, mental, emotional. It doesn't really matter, because we're going to be triggered a lot from the outside. I had no idea how bad I was going to get triggered from people on the outside. It was pretty insane, outside of my practice, meaning in my normal life. All right, the last principle that I want to go over for your inner healer is the mirror. So remember, everyone is a mirror. Everyone is you pushed out. So when you see people outside and the effery, the first thing I want you to ask is, what is this teaching me? How am I learning to grow? How am I learning to heal? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because the universe, again, is there to support you. It's not out to get you. That's a huge distinction that can be really, really challenging to remember, especially during a time like now. So we can help to guide others into depths, but we can only meet each other as deep as we're willing to meet ourselves. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, exactly. And so an unhealed area in the practitioner is always going to show up in subtle areas. So whether it's my control that I'm healing, or my relationships that I'm healing, or my food that I'm healing, it's always going to show up to me in 3K or 3G, 5K, 5G, so that I can see it, right, and understand it, and experience it. So eventually I let go of whatever hooks are holding that in and that are requiring me to even sense that. So a lot of deep work there. Again, we use mirrors for lots of different practices as a tool. Let's see. Unhealed areas of the practitioner again show up in several ways: projection, audience, over-identification with the clients, assimilation, code switching. All of those things are all a part of you diluting yourself in order to make other people feel comfortable. All right. So here's some practices that help strengthen that inner healer. We're not just going to kind of throw you out there and say, good luck. This is to help continue to practice as an inner healer. So personal detoxification, self-care, going through your own products, assessing products, looking around, checking things out. Integrity and firsthand empathy is so key. So if you're not practicing a holistic lifestyle, to what authority do you have, to go and speak to anybody? So if you haven't gone to school for it and you have not practiced it on your own, to what authority do you have to say anything about holistic medicine? You don't. So make sure that you're periodically going through your own protocols. I'm always changing my things up, etc. So because how we treat or how we want to be treated oftentimes is how we're going to treat and run people in our practice. Continuous learning. So again, I have 7 degrees and I did go to school, so you don't have to. However, if you're going to be working with people, just recognize you are going to be a lifelong learner because you want to be able to be ethical and help people, refer people out where they need to be. Always take inner reflections, especially at first. When you're working with patients day in and day out, it can be really taxing. People, again, dump things without even knowing. So a journal is a really good place and a really good tool when you can't pop into a therapist's office to really just dump out and get cathartic. And then lastly, that spiritual connection. I cannot speak to this enough. If I don't do it myself, I get thrown off. So I'm speaking to myself as well. So meditation, prayer, nature, ceremony tend to be a part that connects something bigger than self. So look at the things that have connected us, but also being mindful of the work that I have to do initially and I have to do on myself in order to engage in a healthy relationship. All right. All right. So when you want to support that inner healer within your clients, make sure you empower them with lots of tools, education, self-tracking. You want to celebrate their small wins, their small successes when they achieve them. That really allows them to help build confidence and influence, especially when it comes to their health, because you're not sure what their ACE score is, which is their adverse childhood experience, or really what their background is. So we want to, again, kind of process it the same way so that there's no favoritism, or maybe there is, but that way when you say, hey, I've looked at this, I know you need support, but I've researched this and I'm probably not the good fit because of X, Y, and Z, but here's another practitioner who would be helpful for you, that sort of thing. And then help them see the symptoms as feedback, not failure. Again, there's a lot of conditioning involved. Oh, yeah, exactly. Pisces are very emotional. Cancer, too. And so make sure, that you are training your patients. Hey, Maganaya, nice to see you. Training your patients to document, their health concern, their symptoms, instead of just come to you with a fury and what do I need to do and how do I fix it? Because again, that's that reactive state. We don't know what to fix it because you're not broken. So, but we can assess your food, your water, your labs, all those kinds of things, and come up with a game plan to help assist. So keeping that in mind. Let's see. And then naturally, which I don't think any of us get enough, rest, patience, and trusting our body's timing. I know that can be really frustrating at times because we want when we want it, but recognizing that that is not going to help us. All right. So we cannot pour from an empty cup. Okay. So we need to uncover the conditions for our healing to emerge. And we also must have already done the same for ourselves. So again, as I was saying before, we can meet people as only as we're willing to meet ourselves. So the fact that we are becoming more conscious, becoming more aware, and through our journaling exercises and the mirroring that's happening with our patients, boy, this, I swear, treating people is probably like 10 years worth of therapy in one. Some simple journal prompts to reflect and go deeper before you start seeing people. Where am I trying to fix others instead of heal? It's normally a control issue. How does my personal terrain, like my physical, environmental, emotional, mental, spiritual, impact my objectivity? So where are my blind spots? What are things that I haven't seen, I haven't been exposed to, that perhaps I either need to expose myself to, or I need to kind of create some sort of policy around? And then what boundaries must I set or strengthen to practice my energy and serve clients ethically? So things like Epsom salt baths, things like saying no, resting, those are all really good tools to make sure that you are strengthening your boundaries to protect yourself. All right, let's see. All right, so for your case study, all right. For your case study, it's going to look a little bit like this. There's going to be 1 to 3 recordings in there, all different cases. So you're going to be kind of listening into a clinical assessment back and forth. Don't worry, they're copies, so it's not somebody's session you're crashing. But I wanted to give some concrete examples just so you can start to see it and associate it. And then you're going to apply that structured framework that I gave you, subjective, objective, etc. And you're going to write in each one of those data. And then it's going to help you determine the phase order of therapeutic order. And then you're going to research which tools, foods, etc. will help now versus later, because remember, hopefully our health state will be different in 6 months than what it is now. And then we do have that preliminary care plan that we do our foundational assessments. Then we support any of our eliminatory pathways, and then 1 or 2 progressive steps to be able to move forward. So we're not doing the big bangs. We're really doing little teeny steps over an extended period of time, because we want it to be realistic. We don't want this to be unrealistic. So keep that in mind. So after we've assessed that, our foundational care, the things for the drainage pathways, we have a progressive step list. Now we're going to flag any areas that may need additional subjective support. So maybe you forgot the nutritional assessment questionnaire, or maybe they didn't have a symptom journal and they're all over the place. Whatever, use your discretion in terms of that. You know what the word subjective means. And then there's objective. So you can use that. I mean, again, I get approached by all kinds of things. Sometimes, though, lab companies are not accurate. So making sure they're using reputable labs to determine that. +2, again, the magic is not in the lab work. It's in the human who's choosing to take their power back away from such an oppressive system. All right. Lastly, we're going to go into clinical pearls. Okay. So final clarifications on your case selection. Just choose one. There'll be 3 that'll be uploaded, but just choose one. You're going to listen through it once, take a lot of notes. I'm not going to make them too long or too complicated. They should be pretty clear, but you're listening to decide, which type of case it is. And then there's a format to be able to write the case review. So some common emotional blocks that may come up are kind of hesitation around claiming yourself as a healer, kind of feeling funky about it. Here's what I'll say: fake it till you make it. Throw it out in the beginning and just do a good job. That's what I did. I kept my head down. I did a good job, because no matter how many certificates I showed people, they didn't want to see it. They still don't want to see. They still don't want to recognize and acknowledge that I owned the healthcare system and kind of made it my own and created my own path, really, where there was nothing. And that's all God led. This person doesn't have to understand this, and it's not my job to teach them. Do not be afraid of walking away from crazy conversations that just don't serve you. All right, so let's see. There can also be imposter syndrome, meaning feeling incongruent. So, maybe we're supposed to be, catching lunch, and activity around that, right? But unfortunately, you're not feeling safe, you're not feeling seen, you're not feeling heard, etc. So what are you going to do? You act out, you avoid, you deny, etc. So make sure that you feel comfortable in your own skin, regardless if it's in a lunch situation or if it's in a healthcare situation. Um, Really loving yourself for who you are and not being swayed by other people, I think is key. Authenticity is, I believe, a dying or unaliving process right now in the world. And so showing up as your full self, totally uninhibited, that's what the world needs more of. All right, lastly, your emotional triggers in a healthcare space. Really, you have to learn how to check those. I used to have a journal, and whenever I got emotionally triggered, I would write down what the trigger is, and then at the end of the day, I would process it out. So try to get some sort of education and training. We will do some education on emotional intelligence, which will teach you how to compartmentalize in a safe way, but also teach you the other half of compartmentalization, which is to go back and address whatever it is you compartmentalize. So don't forget to do that. Otherwise, you're just throwing dirt on over all of the problems, but they're still going to grow. All right, so tips for grounding during intense sessions. Sage. I will bring in some of my music tools from Peru, etc. I'll do some chanting. I'll put some music on. I'll put some essential oils going. Really, whatever is going to set the tone for myself mentally and emotionally and spiritually prior to going into the session, and then being able to hold space in the session. I find if I do that and prepare ahead of time, I have a much easier time actually in session than if I'm just fly by night running in. So make sure you keep that ethical practice where you set the tone for the space, you hold the space for the person, and then gently let them leave, wash yourself clean, and present to the next individual. All right, hold on. All right, so final reminders, our final project we'll be working on next week. So we'll do shorter lives next week because I just want to go over all of the just detailed detox plans and how to do them. I'll probably give you a couple examples of them. So you're going to be submitting your case. So don't worry if you're behind. So am I, just trying to kind of wind down and get the rest of this class done because next week will be week 12. So we got through Intro to Holistic Medicine 2, but we've got to go back and clean up because we were all over the place, right? So we also want to make sure that our plan aligns with therapeutic order. So remember, we're not fixing, we're not changing, we're not reacting, but we're building a foundation of a holistic lifestyle that people can take for the rest of their lives. And then be prepared to be challenged on your cases. So that's part of the fun. Yes, exactly. It's okay. Yeah. So be prepared for criticism, pushback, etc. You're going to get that. That's all a part of the journey. Don't take it personally. Don't take offense to it. Try to take it in stride and use it to your greatest advantage. All right. So the healer's job, again, I cannot say this enough, is not to save the patient, but to awaken the healer within them. And you cannot awaken the healer in others what you have not yet discovered inside of yourself. So it sounds like something Lao-Tzu would say. So remember, right? It's not your job to fix, change, make anything different. You can't save people, especially not from themselves, and you can't heal people from themselves. So keep all of that in mind as you are going through this process. It does take a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, but with focus, concentration, and support, you can also make it happen. All right, so that concludes what our topics we were going to go over today that are new. If you are new to my class, welcome in. This is Intro to Holistic Medicine 2, Saturday's class from week 11, all about case taking and case review. So we're just wrapping up our Intro to Holistic Medicine 2. If you're new to any of my education, Intro to Holistic Medicine 1 was a 12-week course all about nutrient deficiencies, pH tracking, subjective and objective assessments, and therapeutic order. Kind of set the stage for what we're doing now. And Intro to Holistic Medicine 2 is all about detoxification pathways, organ systems, case taking, protocol design, and clinical reasoning. So they work really good together. They're both 12-week classes individually. So they are a bit of a commitment, and it is a lot of information to go over. But these really serve, both of these classes serve as foundational prerequisites if you want to move on to a holistic health coaching. Don't worry, these are all self-guided. So, however the pace that you find and the structure you find is fine. Just make sure that you do set a time and set an intention that you're going to get this complete. Otherwise, it's never going to get completed, right? So enroll now by clicking the link in the bio. We want to build your foundation, deepen your skills, and step confidently into a holistic practice. So you know what to do, how to do it, and you're an expert in it. Also, too, we have free access to our holistic lifestyle community. You can join a global network of people all committed to holistic living. You can engage in your discussions, your prompts, any challenges that come. And then also we have a lot of free resources that are available, live updates. So you notice I haven't been doing as much lately because I've been kind of on break, relaxing in the summer. So we'll start kind of our programming back up in the fall again. So it is a free community. You'll get your announcements there. That's probably the most reliable place. Part of the challenge is there's so many places to offer announcements, making sure that we're getting to the right place when we need to, right? All right. And then once you're in the community, you'll have access to downloading the Holistic Lifestyle app. This is your companion app. It's powered by BodySite, and it tracks your pH, your heart rate, steps, sleep, and so much more in real time, bringing really that triage, bringing that healthcare clinic to your location, wherever you are. We can hook up devices to it, glucometers. We can pull your resting heart rate, your blood pressure, all sorts of information. Also syncs with Apple Health as well. So tracking your steps, your water has never been easier. So we definitely emphasize testing and tracking because it is data for us to actually see if what we're doing is working, rather than just kind of, we don't see anything, we don't hear anything, and we're in denial. So we use this as a part of our practice, really to help capture the data, but more so to teach you what you need to know about your data so you can make changes within your lifestyle. And so as more people kind of adopt a holistic lifestyle and begin to educate others, naturally, it will help our entire populations, right? We can store any progress, lab results, health notes, all in one place, and naturally we can send it to you as well. So once you join the community, you'll have an opportunity to do that. Lastly, next week, we will go over our final project week. I will present personalized detox plans format for you. Hopefully I said all that. We'll go over the format for you. I'll complete a few of them on live so you can see them. And then we will celebrate the progress and talk about certification. We'll take another some break time before our next class, just so everybody can get caught up, including myself, right? Next week, we'll start our back to school promo as well. So there's special enrollment bonuses for this class as well as future classes, and discount on any plans that we go through our holistic life app. So we have a lot of different things. We have, all different pain points, from metabolic health to family transitioning to holistic health to mental health, emotional health, etc. But we also have a lot of access points too. So a lot of free resources, low cost, mid-range cost, and high cost resources. So there's really something for everybody to make sure that we're all on this path of self-healing and self-discovery, because of course, nobody is going to save us. We have to save ourselves. So, all right. And that concludes our class for today. Again, if you're just tuning in, thank you so much. I'm your teacher, professor, For this class, Dr. Erica Steele, a board-certified naturopathic doctor. I hold 7 degrees in my field, all in the natural healthcare space. I like to say that I went to school, so you don't have to. And so I make sure I get the information to you in the time frame. You are so welcome, Daphne. I really appreciate it. Definitely. It's a lot of work, but well worth it. So if you guys need any assistance, any help, I am kind of busy today running around and doing all the things. My husband's cousin has her birthday today, so we'll be running around doing that. And then we have a thing with our neighbors tomorrow. So kind of a busy weekend for us for sure. But I'll be around and to answer your questions. So, all right. Well, I am going to check to see if anybody has any last minute questions. Hey, Chastity. Hey, Roller Girl. So good to see you. Hey, Shanae. Hey, God's favorite daughter. All right. Wonderful. Well, I will stick around if you guys have any additional questions. Thank you so much, Ocean. I really appreciate you all. Let me know. Shoot me a DM. You know where to find me. I'm pretty easy to pull together. And thank you guys so much for joining the class today. And I hope you learned something about your inner healer and your boundaries.